Welcome to my vertical obsession. I'm your host Megan, and today we are talking about Keys to My Heart on Shortical. This one stars Meg Bush as Sophie, Shane Deneen as Chris Wilson, Sarah Wines as Tony, and Mia Garcia as Zoe Baker. The synopsis for this is small-town waitress Sophie Baker's world shifts when she reunites with her high school sweetheart, now a rising country music star. Hiding a life-altering secret, their 7-year-old daughter, she navigates reigniting forbidden love while fame, lies, and betrayal swirl around them, threatening to spark scandal and danger. I'm not gonna lie, I've been dying to watch this one. So I was finally glad that I was able to see it because I have seen clips of this and I was like, I need to watch this because it looks so stinking cute, and it was. So my overview of this is Sophie and Chris were high school sweethearts, but when Chris was headed to be a star, his manager convinced Sophie to break up with him and not tell him she was pregnant. Actually, the manager also tried to convince her to get rid of the pregnancy, but we knew that wasn't good. Sophie agrees and leads Chris to believe she cheated on him with his friend and bandmate. Now, years later, Sophie is struggling while raising her daughter. Chris returns to town to work on his new album, and the place he picks just happens to be where Sophie works. Now the two are back in each other's world, and Chris isn't about to let Sophie leave again. His manager is determined to keep the two apart any way she can. Sophie tries to stay away from Chris to appease his manager, but Chris just keeps finding ways to keep her around. Things start to get complicated when Chris bonds with Zoe, Sophie's daughter, not knowing that Zoe is his daughter. After Chris's manager tries to have Zoe taken away from Sophie, the truth starts to come out. Chris's manager is exposed and fired. She didn't realize love and family is a powerful bond, that Chris would do anything for Sophie. Chris and Sophie reunite and become a family again. Such a cute little series, and I loved every minute of it. So we go here now on to my thoughts of the series. Like I said, it was a cute series, and it kind of gave off Hallmark movie vibes. And I think that's what kind of made it that much better, because it was this one and then another, surprisingly enough, another Meg Bush series that gave off Hallmark movie vibes. We'll get into that one another time. Like I said, the Hallmark movie vibes, it helped make it so much more enjoyable for me. It had this sweet tone to it, even with the backstabbing and plotting happening, which were, the backstabbing and the plotting happened to be Sophie's boss who owned the bar that she worked at and Chris's manager. And then for the next part, I had said that it gave off this tone of you can always come home because nothing is more important than your home. And honestly, I struggled to write this down to make it make sense, but hopefully the way I can portray it in telling you and talking will be a little bit better. So Chris mentions that Sophie is his muse, but I felt that for Chris, Sophie was more like his home. Place to be, a place that was safe, a place that supported him, that she was home to him. And when he was separated from her and on the road, he had the struggles of writing music and coming up with new music. So that's why he decided to return to the place that he was last with Sophie, because he wanted to find that spark again. And what better way to find that spark than to be where it all kind of started. And that led him to Sophie, who was still working at that bar. And so in a sense, it kind of led him home and led him straight back to Sophie, because when she was around him, he had that spark and he was able to come up with music again and started being creative. And yes, possibly you could go with she's a muse and she kind of sparked his creativity and his musical talent when he returned. I felt it was more than that, which is why I was saying she was his home. She was the place she was his safe place. She was the one who believed in him, who helped him achieve this stardom. And without her, he was lost. So that's why he never found anyone again, and why he was so happy that she was there, so that way he could get back together with her. I'm hoping this makes sense. What I had written was, she was the one person who truly believed in him and supported him. When she left, he didn't have that anymore. So that broke him. And when it came to continuing, he struggled without that support, which is why he was drawn back home and back to. That's why when she was near, he was able to write again and create music. Plus, there probably was a part of him that felt like there still was something there, something that unfinished between him and Sophie. So I think that helped draw him back. Because, he could have gone anywhere. He could have gone anywhere to create his music, to try and re-spark his creativity, but he chose the town where they grew up, the town where him and Sophie were a couple, where they were happy, where he grew up. And I think it was more than just simply he wanted to go back to where it all started. I think he wanted to go back to where he and Sophie were at their best, because that's where he was at his best with his career, even though he became this rising music star over the years after she left. But I think all that glamour faded, and he still cared about her, and that showed when they reunited. So I think that is kind of where I saw that, is that she was more than just a muse. She was his home, his safe place, the place that he could create this music and become this star. So some of the notes I had were not all bad things. There were 2 questions of why, and another one of what I liked, and then just a very confused me. I was trying to kind of figure that out, which was probably just me overthinking things a little bit. So for the first note I had was, after watching it, I kept seeing ads for this series with scenes that are not in the actual series. And it confuses the crap out of me when I watch them. And I'm like, but these weren't in the series. So why are these being used to advertise? And that is always one thing I hated about movies, because they used to do that. I don't think they do it as much anymore, but I think they still do it from time to time, is that movies will take scenes that aren't even in the actual movie for the trailer and use them. So sometimes in trailers, you will see a scene that isn't even in the movie. And that was all too common for some movies. I think one of the most notable one might have been Matilda. I think there is a scene in the trailer. I forget which scene it is, because my brain is thinking about the one where she's on the table and things are flying around, and I think that one actually isn't that one. But I know there's a scene in the trailer for Matilda that is not in the actual movie. And I know that's happened on other occasions too, and you're just like, wait, what? I know there's other times where there's scenes where they'll kind of change a scene, so how it looks in the trailer is not how it actually happens in the show. I know that, or in the movie, I know that happens. The same with TV series. I've noticed from time to time that to make things a little bit more suspenseful and eye-catching and to get people's attention, is that they'll take scenes from other episodes and kind of add it to the promo for the next episode, and then you're like, wait, huh? So I've seen that happen. So I know that's a common practice from time to time. And I think at one point it was said, at least for the trailers, I think it was for the trailers for the movies and for the TV shows, it's usually someone else who edits the trailers and the promos than who edits the actual movie and TV show. I might be wrong about the TV show, but I think when it comes to the movies, one person edits the trailer and one person edits the movie. Whether that's changed now, but I don't know. But I think at one point that was how it was done. So that's why you would end up with scenes that didn't exist in the movie or didn't make the cut because they didn't know what was in the movie. They were just making the trailer to promote it. And like I said, this was something that I read about or heard about years ago, so I don't know if that practice has changed, because I know, because I'm pretty sure there were people who would get pissed off about that, and I think maybe that's what made the process change, if it did, because there's nothing worse than watching this trailer and seeing this great scene or a great line and then watching the movie and it's not there. And you're like, wait, what? So that's what kind of like threw me for a loop for this, is the fact that you have these scenes that they're advertising that aren't even in the series. So it's like there's two different scenes that I've seen. One where Sophie and Chris are talking about a wedding, and then Sophie tells Chris that Zoe is his daughter. And then the other one is they're in the same like setup, same outfit. They're sitting on a couch in both of these scenes, and they're both in the same outfit. So it's almost like these two scenes happen together. But the other scene is they're talking about Zoe's birthday, and Chris gets a phone call that Zoe isn't his friend's daughter. And now he's like, is Zoe what? So then he finds out that Zoe's his. So I'm like, but neither of these scenes and neither of these outfits, too, especially the one that Meg Bush is wearing in the scene, is not in the series at all. So I'm like, why are we showing these as advertisements for this series when they're not even in the series at all? It's like these scenes don't even happen. This isn't how Chris finds out that Zoe's his. It's also one of those things too where, like I said, they're in the scene, they're talking about Zoe's birthday, but Zoe's birthday happens in the series way before he finds out that Zoe's his daughter. So it's like, I feel like they had a different storyline for this series, and they kind of changed it as they were editing. So I'm very confused about these scenes that are being used as advertisement for this, but are just not there. I'm like, so where are they? Where can I see these full scenes? Does this change the actual series plot at all? Like, is this a alternate storyline for this series? So many questions about these particular scenes, not gonna lie. But speaking of the series, we go into the next topic, which is the song that Chris sings. I believe it is called the River Song is the name of it. Why is this not a song you can download? Why is this not a song that you can find anywhere to listen to? Because I would 100% download it and put it on my iTunes. The same with the songs from the Flare Flow series, 99 Charms. Why can't I download those? At least those ones were put on YouTube, so you can actually listen to them. Whereas I cannot find this one for Keys to My Heart. I cannot find it. And I really wish I could, because I really like that song. Does it exist? And is it by a completely different artist? So, like, did Shane actually sing, or did someone sing for Shane? Now, that's a whole new question that I didn't even think about. I just figured it was Shane who was singing, but was it Shane singing, or was it someone singing for Shane? Because like I said, I assumed it was Shane, and I was like, oh, I like hearing him. Can we have him sing more? Can we have him do more singing? Which I definitely should have looked that up to see if that was really him. I would like to believe that it is him, but I do know that sometimes that does happen, that there are people who will sing for others. But now I've gone down this like rabbit hole in my head of, wait, maybe that's why I can't find the song. Maybe it's by a completely different person. I'm going to have to look into that. If anyone knows about this song, could you please let me know? Please, because I would love to hear it, would love to have it, and would love to add it to my collection of songs. So just saying. So the next two notes that I had were about Chris's friend Eddie and Chris. So we'll go with the first one, which is, I'm glad that Chris and Eddie were able to make up. I really love that factor. I love that they added that in and that they had him bring Eddie back to the band. I am sad that we really didn't get to see Eddie much more, other than the quick little conversation they had in the auto body shop. I would have loved to see more. I was happy to see that Eddie and Chris made up, because it was Sophie who kind of ruined things for Eddie, and it seems that she never really explained to him why she needed him to pretend, so that it seemed like she was cheating on Chris. And I kind of wish she did, so that way it made a little bit more sense and that he wasn't so bitter. But at the same time, I feel like if she did tell him, that he might tell Chris, and then it would ruin everything. So at the same time, I get it. I was glad to see that that friendship was healed, that they were able to make up, and he was able to bring him back to the band. But throughout that whole conversation too, it's like when Chris realized that Eddie wasn't Zoe's father, he had this whole moment that was like an epiphany. And he was like, oh, I gotta go. And then Eddie's like, wait, you just came here to yell at me? And from there, he goes to Sophie's door and he's like, I know Eddie's not Zoe's father. I need to talk. I know you didn't sleep with Eddie. And then he goes into the house and then she shows up with the social worker and the whole Zoe being gone and coming back with Chris debacle comes out. And then Zoe tells them that, no, Chris is my dad. But following that, when they're alone, Chris goes through this whole thing of, my God, Zoe, that's great. You came up with this great idea. I love it. It was smart thinking. And I'm just thinking to myself going like, wait, didn't you just realize that Eddie is not her father and that you were her father? Isn't that what the epiphany you had in the garage was? So it was like, who did he think Zoe's father was? If it wasn't Eddie, I would have bet anything that he realized that Zoe was his, but that's not how that whole scenario went, and Sophie still told him. So I was a little disappointed about that, because I really thought that he had caught on and he had realized that he was Sophie's father throughout that whole conversation with Eddie. And even if he hadn't fully realized it, I still thought the conversation should have been like him mentioning, it's like, I know Eddie's not her father. Who is, or am I her father? I feel like that could have been the conversation. But I was a little disappointed in the reveal, especially from where we were with Chris to when we got the reveal that Zoe was Chris's daughter. You know, it felt like there was something missing, that there could have been something added in there. But all in all, I loved this series. It was so cute. It was so great. I loved it. And it's the sweetest thing. Watched it a couple of times, especially the end, because again, the song. And it was sweet, lighthearted, such a little romantic series. 100% reminded me of Hallmark vibes and Hallmark movies. So I think it was definitely a sweet little rom-com for sure. So the rating I gave it was an 8 out of 10. And I definitely would have given it higher ratings, but again, there were some moments that could have been different, and I think had they been a little bit different, that maybe we could have given it a little bit higher. I'm very particular about the 9 and 10 on my ratings, so a series has to be like phenomenal to get a 9 on anything. And we haven't gotten there just yet. I think there might have been one that had a 9 on something, but I'm trying to be very particular. So to have 8s and have an 8 out of 10, that is very high in my book, I will say, when it comes to this rating scale. So this has been Keys to My Heart. As always, would love to hear your thoughts on the series, what you liked or what you didn't like. Have you seen the ads with the clips that aren't actually in the series? What are your thoughts on that? And if you are enjoying this podcast, please be sure to give it a review. I am your host, Megan, and this has been my vertical obsession. Until next time.